To week 9 of the NFL season and the Consistently Cashin podcast here at BigGuyFantasySports.com. I'm Colby Conway. Find me over on X at Colby R. Conway. And with me, as always, Ron Rigney here on this fine Saturday morning as we are recording. So, Ron, how is everything going for you?
Going good, man. Hope everybody had a good Halloween. Hopefully, you got some of some of those treats from Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, and who am I leaving out? Devontae Adams, kind of his coming out party there for the New York Jets. I know it was a kind of a tough one for your Texans there, Colby. But if it makes you feel any better, I had to start Xavier Hutchinson in two places, so I definitely got tricked on that one.
I picked him up in a couple leagues and did not start him in any. So,
Good.
at least that one worked out at least. But yeah,
Yeah.
that game was something else. But that Texans Jets game is not on the Sunday main slate for us, obviously. So let's turn our attention to those games in the 1 and 4 o'clock windows, and let's start at the quarterback position here. One of the top price guys, Jalen Hurts, does fall into my anybody against Jacksonville mantra that I've been going with all year. But let me kick it over to you. Then also you got Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, some other guys there at the top. What has really caught your eye at the quarterback position this week as you built out some DFS lineups here on DraftKings?
Really like to have Jalen Hurts in there, and I was able to do it in a couple places. Couple places it was a little bit tougher. Another guy that if you want to pay down a little bit, a game that I like that total is that Dallas Atlanta game. I think that has the potential to go over that 48-point total. I think both sides of that quarterback matchup are in play there, but I think if I had to pick one out of the two of those, I'd probably go with Kirk Cousins. But man, if we can get Jalen Hurts to work. Also, either side, if you can afford it, of that Buffalo Dolphins game sitting at 51 points right now as well. I think that has the potential to be a track meet. Like we like it here in DFS, but of course, you got to pay up for Josh Allen up there at the top. But if we can pay down a little bit, I know that Buffalo defense has been kind of stout against the pass, but I think that with Tyreek Hill at all, I think they can score some points.
And in that Dallas Atlanta game, fourth over the last 4 weeks, Dallas has allowed the fourth most fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks. And then you have Atlanta at ninth most allowed to the quarterback position. So I like both of those. A lot of the builds that I've experimented with, I have not had the funds available to pay for a quarterback above $6,000. And I'll go into that as to why a little bit later on. Some guys below that $6,000 tier, I do like Bo Nix against Baltimore. They've allowed the second most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks over the last 2 weeks. And if we look just at the main slate, they've actually allowed the most to the position because the only team that's allowed more over the last 4 weeks in Baltimore is Tampa Bay, but they're not on the main slate. They're on Monday Night Football. So on the slate, Baltimore has been one of the more generous ones. And I like Matt Stafford a lot. Should have his weapons back. Puka sounds like he's going to play, but regardless, you can pick apart Seattle. So I like going there as well. And also, Derek Carr is making his return, and Carolina is just bad, fifth most fantasy points per game over the last 4 weeks to quarterback. So I think you have plenty of different options there at quarterback. If you, let's look at like Kyler Murray and above, any of those guys that you 100% would not play this week?
There's honestly not a lot of guys that I'm totally staying away from. I see what you're saying with Carr down there towards the bottom. I think Bo Nix, again, when you look at, those passing stats, the one thing that scares me a little bit about Bo Nix, now not to say he hasn't gotten it done through the air, but Baltimore has allowed a lot of stuff to quarterbacks on the ground. Now, is that a result of them being so bad against the pass? Is that their defense being stout in that front seven? I don't know. That's for smarter people than me to figure out. But I don't think I'd feel real comfortable going probably below Bo Nix. I know what you're saying about Derek Carr. I know Chris Olave is back. But again, no Rashid Shaheed there, no downfield threat. I don't think I want to go below Bo Nix if I don't have to.
Fair enough. Let's head over to the running back position here. Also, let me just continue on with this tease that I'm going with. I have not had the money to pay up for a good running back either. I've had to stay in about the mid-tier because of decisions that I've made at other positions, which will actually be what we talk about next. So let me kind of kick it over to you here first. What running backs have really caught your eye overall that have either been staples of your builds or who at least have found themselves in there quite frequently?
Swift was kind of disappointment the first few weeks, and he's been lights out the last few. They've got the Cardinals, who are the fifth most friendly team in terms of fantasy points to the running back spot. I would love it very much if we could get Bijan Robinson in that build, but I just don't know if we're going to be able to afford it.
if you let me pick the wide receivers, you will not be able to get Bijan Robinson. So that might be you might have to use your trump card when we talk about the one guy that you want to lock in there to preserve that. I like Bijan. I really like DeAndre Swift. He falls into a tier that I can get behind. As
Yeah.
long as two is under center, Devon Achane's always in play.
Yep.
The two that I love, and he's become very chalky now, Chase Brown, Zach
Chase
Moss is
Brown. Yep.
doubtful. So that's just everybody's going to be in on him because the Raiders have been quite generous over the last 4 weeks to opposing running backs on the year, or yeah, to running backs over the last 4 weeks. And for the year, they've even been pretty generous despite not allowing a ton of touchdowns to the position per se. You can go to Tyrone Tracy. I don't really feel great about it. I've really hung out in like the Chase Brown to DeAndre Swift range. I'm really intrigued by Ramondre Stevenson because when New England has somewhat of a lead, they feed him the rock.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that could happen again. So again, I haven't had the money to really pay up. I think you could also look at Chuba Hubbard as well, just because Jonathan Brooks is out again, and Hubbard gets the ball a ton. So that's a quick little overview of the running back position. Let's head over to wide receiver. And before I totally destroy our budget, I'll kick it over to you first to talk about wideouts.
I mean, it's going to be tough. I think I might know where you're going. It's tough to when you look at CD Lamb and you look at that matchup. It's tough to go past that one, but that is a lot of coin. You got AJ Brown again against Jacksonville, like you were saying. Pick on that Jacksonville defense anytime you can. So a couple of nice matchups there towards the top. If you go down a little bit less and you still want to get some of that Philly versus Jacksonville action, Devontae Smith is another guy that's much more affordable as far as still getting a piece of that game. And then last but not least, I'll point out Jaden Reed as well, sitting there $6,400. I like that price in that matchup against Detroit, which figures to be a pretty high scoring game as well. Whether or not and I think it is that whether or not Jordan Love plays as well. I like it a little bit more, obviously, if he's in the lineup, but it still could be a little less chalky if you've got Malik Willis in there.
Puka would have been a receiver that I had in every build. The knee injury just kind of puts me off him a little bit. When I have done builds, I have put in both CD Lamb and AJ Brown. They are my two favorite plays on the entire slate. Love the matchup for both. Both are in the best sides, or I guess you could say best sides of their splits. CD Lamb goes into the slot. Atlanta's horrible against slot corners. Jacksonville plays a ton of man. AJ Brown's one of the best wide receivers in the league against man coverage. So fortunately, there is enough value across the other positions that I've built respectable builds with CD Lamb and AJ Brown in the same lineup. So I think it can be done. But if you want to pay up for Bijan or maybe a top quarterback, and you can't get both CD Lamb and AJ Brown, I love Terry McLaurin. I like Drake London. I like Devontae Smith, Jaden Reed. I love the matchup. I'm scared to death if it's Malik Willis, so I'm not sure I'm going there. Chris Olave is far too cheap against a really bad Carolina secondary.
Mm-hmm.
Calvin Ridley's in a fine spot. Lad McConkey also destroys man coverage, and Cleveland plays a ton of man. So McConkey is really cheap at 5,600. And then, of course, the man of X over the last couple of days is Mr. Jalen Coker. He's down at $3,600. Carolina stinks. Everybody's like basically hurt on that team. He's one of the few healthy ones, and he plays in the slot. Alante Taylor has been one of the worst slot corners in the league, really dating back to the beginning of last year.
I was going to
So,
say, I feel like we've hated on Alante Taylor for years now, and it's definitely justified. He is the only corner in the league, I think, that plays the slot that I actually know his name, and it's all because we pick on him all the time.
yep, and that's not pretty much a good thing. It's kind of like if you don't like in baseball, like if you don't hear much about the catcher, it's fine. Like everything's
Yeah.
okay. If you don't hear much about the long snapper, you're good. If you hear a lot of talk
Mm-hmm.
about it, things aren't good. And then
Mm-hmm.
another cheap one you can go with is Parker Washington. At the very least, we know Christian Kirk
Yeah.
isn't going to play. If Brian Thomas is out, Washington becomes the de facto number 2 wide receiver. He's only $3,600, and we've seen him get it done at various points in his young career. So you're going to have to look at a Coker or Washington type if you're going to go with the Conway build, which is AJ Brown and CD Lamb, but it can be done. Head over to the tight end position. I will. This probably won't come as much of a surprise, Ron, but I did not have much money for the tight end position either. So, what kind of catches your eye at tight end? What players are you looking at? There's one that in the price tier that I was falling into really caught my eye. I'm curious if he's on your list.
Yeah, honestly, there's not a lot at the top that I feel comfortable going with. I mean, Sam Laporta sitting there at 4,800, solid matchup there against Green Bay. We saw him kind of get it going a little bit the last couple of weeks. Hopefully that continues. I scroll down a little bit more, and there's not a whole heck of a lot here. I need to tight end in a couple of my leagues because I've got George Kittle. Really wanted to go with Noah Fant this week in a great matchup. He's out. Tyler Higbeast is out. Juwan Johnson sitting there against Carolina, pretty cheap there. But the one that I'm looking at is down there at $3,000. Adam Troutman uh, against Baltimore. Again, Baltimore horrendous against anybody that throws and catches the football. And I think like you said, with the build that we're probably going to do here, $3,000 is probably that range we're going to be hanging out in.
Depending on what you do at other positions, the build that I've done, I have gotten in Sam Laporta, so I think I can
Okay,
get up
all
to
right,
about 4,800. And
all
Laporta
right, it's
was
pretty
my
good.
short list. He was my short list tight end. So you hit that
Okay,
one on the head with Green Bay allowing the 8th most fantasy points per game to tight ends on the year and the 5th most receiving yards on the 3rd most targets to the position. I'm sorry, 3rd most receptions. So you can definitely get after them. And no Jamison Williams is good for Mr. Laporta. Talk about defense here. Could you pay up for the Saints against Carolina? Sure, if you have the money. But again, I really didn't. For me, I looked at both sides of that Titans Patriots game, but I've really fallen in love with the Patriots defense because Titans are obviously going to go with Mason Rudolph. Tony Pollard didn't practice all week, so who the heck knows with him? And it's just an uninspiring offense. So I really liked the Patriots, or I was also looking at a couple of other teams in there, but the Patriots were the one I felt the most comfortable with. What about you at defense?
I'm with you on that. I was right there, and then the one above that, the Eagles. Again, if they're without Brian Thomas, if they're without Christian Kirk, it's going to be Evan Ingram. I don't know, Tank Bigsy's back there, but I feel like that Eagles defense for that what they cost too, $3,100. I feel like, especially if they're without both of those guys, for what we're going to have left, I think that's a pretty solid fit as well.
Notification just popped up on my phone as we're recording this. Jordan Love and Puka Nakua are both expected to play. I think we kind of knew that in a way, or at least we kind of thought that. But right there's the confirmation. If you were looking for it, you got it. But again, as much as confirmation as expected to can be. So let's go ahead and build our lineup here. So, Ron, you get one player that we get to put in there. No questions asked, no holds barred. Who are you looking at?
I want you to do yours first.
Well, I'll go AJ Brown.
Okay. Reason I did that is because I'm going CD Lamb. Let's do it.
All right, good.
We're
Okay,
gonna
so if
make it
we're gonna
work.
do that, we're gonna have to go Jalen Coker.
Okay.
Okay, so now we can go around a little bit. So like I said, running backs when I've done these types of builds, I really like Chase Brown. It's just too cheap for the workload.
Right. Right. Agreed.
So the other thing we could do, and a guy we didn't talk about, and it's kind of going to be a little bit dependent on what happens with Tony Pollard, but Tajay Spears is out. Pollard didn't practice all week. You could look at Julius Chestnut, who effectively would become the lead back, but we don't know Pollard's status for sure yet. So what we can do, I mean, do you want to put in Chestnut and hope Pollard doesn't play, or at least he's the backup running back that gets some work, or do you want to just look elsewhere just for
Let's do that for now and see what we can pay up for, and if we have to go with that, we have to go with that. Again, I think if Pollard plays and you don't have Tajay Spears, I mean, he's gonna get in there at some point. He's gonna get a few carries here and there. We'll see what happens, but let's see what we can put in there, and then maybe we'll have something left over to pay up a little bit.
Yeah, let's do what we'll do is we'll do a Chestnut build for right now, and then we'll take him out if someone's like risk averse, or it's like, hey, you can roll with this, and if we get news that Pollard plays, here's what you can pivot to. So let's start with the Chestnut build. Let's head over to tight end. I mean, I love Sam Laporta, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay if you just want to go with him regardless.
Yep.
All right, we'll put in Laporta. We got about 14.8 for a quarterback flex and defense. If we were to add Robinson, that puts us at 7.4 for so we're not going to be able to quite get up to Bijan, but we should be able to get a decent mid-price guy. But
Are we able to afford DeAndre Swift there?
yeah, I mean, yeah, that's
It's
a little bit more
64.
reasonable. Quarterback, we go. So if we go $3,000 for the Patriots defense, that puts us at 5,400. We're down at like Jameis. So we're down. Swift actually might just be a little bit of the high end. We'd still be about 3, 4, 500 away from Carr,
Okay.
Stafford, Knicks.
All right.
What we could do is go switch Swift to Olave, go Carr and Olave stack.
Good. I
So
like
if
it.
we
I
switch
like
out
it.
that, and let's see where that puts us at. There's Carr, Chris Olave, 3,100 for a defense. So it's Eagles or Patriots. We get our pick.
Well, is that if we go Patriots, is that $100 gonna be able to get us anything better than
I mean, Carr
uh,
goes to Stafford.
Chestnut? Yeah.
No,
What about
not more
Chestnut?
than Chestnut.
Probably
No.
not. No. Okay.
Audric Estime, Amari DiMarcado. So I
Yeah.
like this build. So if you go Carr, Brown, Chestnut, Brown, Lamb, Coker, Laporta, Olave, Patriots. Let's say we get news that comes out. I like this lineup if Pollard's ruled out. Let's
Yeah.
say Pollard's going to play and be okay. Probably don't go Chestnut. Probably not going to
No.
be able to afford Olave. Let's take Carr out there. So we'd have Chase Brown, AJ Brown, CD Lamb, Coker, Laporta. I'll just leave the Patriots in there for now. So that gives us 15-8. So now what we'd probably want to look at, if we go Swift, 9,400, we could go Parker Washington, 36. That gives us 58 for a quarterback. We're looking at Geno, Stafford, or we can go right back to Derek Carr. We just don't have any. We can't stack any. We just wouldn't really have a stack. I mean, not that we necessarily have to, but so we could have Stafford, Brown, Swift, Brown, Lamb, Coker, Laporta, Parker, Washington, Patriots. What do you think about that?
I mean, are we dumb enough to maybe think Malik Willis can throw it against Detroit? I know you said that scares you, but Detroit's not very good against pass.
Well, they just said Jordan Love's expected to play, though.
Oh, that's right. You did say that. Okay. You did say that. You did say that.
The other thing we could do
Forgot
is,
we got that breaking news. Yeah, honestly, in that range, if we're gonna stick, I'd stick with Carr if we're in that range. I think.
okay. So then if we put Carr in, we'd have $200. We could get Swift up to Hubbard or James Conner, but I like Swift more than both
Yeah,
of them.
I agree. I agree.
We're not going to get anybody better than Coker at sub 4,000.
No.
And then we could get Laporta up to Kyle Pitts or Dalton Kincaid. But I kind of really like Laporta.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's the same thing with him and Swift. I like the cheaper guy better than the two more expensive guys.
All right. I think actually I almost like this better than if Pollard doesn't play and Chestnut's in there. So let's
Yeah.
roll this as the week 9 lineup. If Pollard does get ruled out, just rewind this video a little bit. You can go back to the Chestnut build and it's all good. But if not, Derek Carr, Chase Brown, DeAndre Swift, AJ Brown, CD Lamb, Jalen Coker, Sam Laporta, Parker Washington, and the Patriots defense will be the week 9 or the week 9 lineup for here, the Consistently Cashin podcast. So Ron Rigney, let everyone know where they can find you on X and all of your work here at BigGuyFantasySports.com.
Yeah, Ron Rigney on the X Machine. Go check out the waiver wire consistency. Go check out every other piece of great information we have over at BigGuyFantasySports.com. Of course, you guys did the Profit Like It's Hot. We've got this Consistently Cashin. We did the Consistency Show Thursday night, Mr. Long and myself. So plenty of fantasy goodness over there. And if you're not a paid subscriber, go get that. $20 for the year. We get you everything that we've got there, all the consistency, everything you have access to it to win your league, to make that playoff push over at BigGuyFantasySports.com.
I'm biased, but I couldn't agree more myself. You can find me over on X at Colby R. Conway, and again here at BigGuyFantasySports.com. Probably Like It's Hot article, probably Like It's Hot podcast, the Who's Hot, Who's Not article, and of course, this Consistently Cashin podcast. So we're looking to get back on the clutch game, get a clutch game streak going here with some of our lineups here. Make sure you check out all the great content at BigGuyFantasySports.com, and we will see you next week for the Week 10 edition of the Consistently Cashin podcast.